Hello and welcome to another Tifo Members Tactics video. Robert Younger has suggested today's topic. He actually asked for 2 German teams, but that is greedy, Robert, so we're only going to do one. We're going to do FC Union Berlin, or Union Berlin. As you can see, I'm wearing a Union Berlin shirt. I have actually been to watch them play at the Stadion an der Alte Forestier, which was constructed in 2008 by the fans of the club. Because Union Berlin are skint, basically. Their new chairman, or their current chairman, is a guy called Dirk Zingler. He took over in 2004. The next season, Union Berlin were playing in the 5th tier of German football, 2005-06. They only got to the 2nd Bundesliga this time around, back at the end of 2009-10. So this is far from a powerhouse of German football. They have a really, really interesting history. They're based in the kind of the southeast part of Berlin. Obviously, Berlin also has Hertha, which is pretty much considered to be the least popular club in German football, possibly even more so than Bayern Munich. These guys, on the other hand, seem to be very, very well loved. They've got quite a kind of leftist vibe, very, very fan inclusive. During the last World Cup, they invited fans to bring their sofas to the stadium, and they put them all on the pitch and they could watch the game on a big screen. They also have a very famous club song, Eisen Union, Eisen meaning like the iron workers, because that's kind of their background, and it was sung by kind of a punk rock woman called Nina Hagen. So if you go onto YouTube and look up Nina Hagen, Eisen Union, they play that song at the beginning of every game and everyone sings along to it. It's very, very cool. It's your kind of quintessential Bundesliga 2 fan experience as well, from what I'm given to understand. I've only been to that one, but you know, pretty much everyone stands. Singing is constant. It's great, great fun. So if you're ever in Berlin, try and find these guys. There is a possibility that tickets will become harder next season, because due to Union Berlin's performance on the pitch this season in Bundesliga 2, they are currently in 3rd place. Now, Bundesliga 2, promotion and relegation, you probably know, but it's basically 2 down from the Bundesliga, 2 up from Bundesliga 2, and then there's a promotion relegation playoff. So the 3rd worst team in the Bundesliga, which is currently Stuttgart, could possibly be Nuremberg, because I think there's only 3 points between those two, plays whoever comes 3rd in Bundesliga 2 as a playoff. German football is kind of in the same way that, you know, it's largely at the moment dominated by Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund. The clubs that go down from the Bundesliga are, generally speaking, significantly wealthier, with a much better infrastructure and a much better playing staff than the clubs that are trying to come up from Bundesliga 2. So generally speaking, there's like a swap. You know, the bottom 2 go down, the top 2 go up, and then they just sort of pivot back and forth. So, you know, Hamburg and Köln, FC Köln, who are the top 2 sides in Bundesliga 2 at the moment, are very traditional kind of top tier clubs, big fan bases. Hamburg, obviously a massive club. So it's very likely that they'll go up quite comfortably, or they will go up quite comfortably, because I don't think Union can catch them now. But the disparity, if Union meet Stuttgart, for example, in that playoff, it's very unlikely they would go up. And if they did go up, I think they would struggle. You know, this playing staff it's very competent and it's interesting, and we'll look in a minute at how they play. But you know, the German top league is kind of a closed shop, even with those clubs coming down from Bundesliga 2 and then bouncing back up again. Stylistically, Union Berlin are interestingly similar to Getafe, who we looked at, I think, 2 weeks ago. They are the 2nd lowest in Bundesliga 2 for passes per game. They're averaging only about 360, 370 passes per game. Only Jan Regensburg, who Union drew 2-2 with at the weekend, are lower. They are not particularly great with their pass completion. It's about 70%, possession about 48%. What they do really well is they get a lot of shots generated, so they're averaging almost 15 shots per game, which is the 4th best in Bundesliga 2, and they're far and away the best in the air. A lot of that is due to this man here, Stefan Andersson. But also Hübner and Friedrich are very, very strong, solid, capable centre-backs. Very, very good in the air as well. Union Berlin score quite a lot of their goals from set pieces, either from the initial set piece or from a knockdown or, kind of scrambling around. So how are they like Getafe? Well, generally speaking, unlike Getafe, they play in a 4-2-3-1. They do use other formations occasionally. By and large, it's 4 at the back. There's not a great deal of variety here, but we'll look at the 4-2-3-1 because it is their most standard formation. So this back line is very, very solid. Trimmel's been outstanding this season, and Gikliewicz, I almost certainly pronounced that incorrectly, Polish goalkeeper, has been really, really solid too. Their performance in Bundesliga 2 is based on their defence. They've only conceded 28 goals. That is the lowest. And while there's 2 or 3 teams below them in the table who've scored more, nobody in Bundesliga 2 has conceded fewer. What's quite interesting, though, is the way they do that. So defensively, I'm not actually really going to draw very much here because there's not a lot of point. Union Berlin are a pressing side, and they are a manically pressing side. The team that I've seen that's probably in some ways most similar is when Ralf Hasenhüttl was in Bundesliga 2 and he was coaching there. That same kind of really intense, really fierce pressing. These guys here are a kind of quintessential ball-winning double pivot. We've seen that quite a lot recently in videos that we've done here. Schmeiderbach is the team captain and is basically like the Jefferson Lerma of Bundesliga 2. He will get booked. It's almost inevitable. Alongside him, Prömel is similarly hard tackling. I think he makes slightly fewer tackles per 90, but he's a bit more of a passer. But generally these two are here to break up the play. And there's an awful lot of pressing work that comes from this lot as well. Stefan Andersson is a hugely impressive striker and I think somebody that would be worth looking at if you're certainly kind of a top tier championship club, maybe even a Premier League side at the lower end, definitely. But, interestingly, Gogia, I'm not sure how you say it, was one of the Brentford acquisitions when they were kind of doing their Moneyball type scouting. He's back in Germany, which is where they purchased him from another Bundesliga 2 club. I can't remember who, but these guys are, hard pressing, hard working. The shape will fall back into a kind of 4-5-1. Anderson relentlessly presses centre backs, opposition goalkeeper, and it's all about, just stifling the opposition, making themselves hard to play through, not by creating a kind of, a solid block here, a low block or a mid block, but just by hounding the ball constantly. If the ball does get past this bit here, then Schmeiderbach and Prömel will look to close down, tackle hard, win the ball back. The fullbacks, Reichel and Tremmel, are not enormously adventurous. That helps keep this solidity in the back line. Generally speaking, Union are happy if you've got the ball out here, because between Hübner, Friedrich and Gleichewicz, they're fairly confident that they can prevent opportunities if crosses come in. Where they're probably most vulnerable is teams that look to play through them. And they're solid guys. They're not massively quick, so they can have issues in here. And sometimes you see when attacking moves against Union kind of turn into this slightly pinball-y thing. So the ball's up in the air and it's up in the air and they're heading it backwards and forwards. This is not a team that looks to exert control over the ball. It's a team that's quite happy if it's a frantic kind of tempo to the game, if possession is changing over very quickly, if the position of the ball is changing ends very quickly. They're confident enough in these guys and in the kind of the ability of this front line to maximise their opportunities in broken play, to not look to get their foot on the ball, pass it around. So that's a sort of a rough sense of how they defend. it's lots and lots of pressing and a really good solid pair of centre-backs is basically it. Attacking wise, we're going to use the same picture because there's really no point in changing over. It's very direct, and there are two reasons for this. Firstly, as we've said, Anderson is fantastic in the air. So what quite often happens is if the ball is won in this kind of area, then either the centre-backs or the defensive midfielders will pass it out to the full-backs. At that point, the game plan is really simple, and it reminds me a little bit of how Southampton used to play in the sort of 2003-2005 period. Get it to the full-backs, and then the full-backs play long passes up into this sort of area of the pitch. Look at that, that's really bad, isn't it? The reason for that is that what they're looking for is two things. When Southampton did it, they'd usually get Peter Crouch kind of pulling out there and then trying to get a cross in. But Berlin want... Where's my pen? There's my pen. Berlin want to hem you in here. And there are two reasons for that. The first reason is that it naturally kind of pulls players from the opposition towards this space to try and work possession out as in away from their own goal. And that frees up space for these guys here. And also because they're quite happy to counter-press. So it doesn't matter to Union Berlin if they bush a long ball into the corner here and lose possession and the opposition fullback has it. That's kind of what they want, and that's one of the reasons why their possession stats are low, their passing stats are low, because what they're really looking to do is to create these kind of chaotic instances where the player's fractured and then move quickly into an attacking phase. So these guys, Gogia, Hartl and Kroos, they're generally speaking their first choices. Hartl, I think, probably is the first choice, but he's not played. I think he's started 17 games, 18 games, something like that. They will look to get wide, but also they're quite happy kind of longer crosses coming in from here. And sometimes the fullbacks will get forward and do that, or Kroos will get forward and do that. Crossing wise, they're quite a fan of crossing from deep and crossing quite aerially, partly because Anderson is so good in the air. He's scored 11 goals. His replacement, who's a guy called Sebastian Polter, is also quite a kind of lanky forward who's good in the air, and he's scored 7. So they're the two leading scorers. And because they only use one man up, generally speaking, Anderson will start, Polter will finish. Occasionally they'll play two in tandem if they're really chasing the game. Kroos kind of loiters here. Now he is a creative player, definitely not as good as his brother. He is the brother of Toni Kroos. But Felix Kroos is not really required to be much of a playmaker given the way Union plays. So generally speaking, he's more looking to make sort of runs around this area, either to get into the box and latch on to knockdowns from Anderson, or to drag marking players away to make space for the runs of Hartl and Gogia to come in, or occasionally to pull wide and play these sort of floated crosses in. Gogia is a pretty direct runner, so he's much more likely just to be kind of herring towards the goal. He's got quite a nice low centre of gravity, so he's difficult to stop, and he's scored some good goals kind of cutting inside from this right-hand attacking berth. But really the focus of the attacking play is Anderson. He will score a lot of opportunities himself with his head. He'll create knockdowns for other players that are running forwards. And essentially, you know, this midfield double pivot of Schmeiderbach and Prömel is not really required to push forwards too much. They like to sort of occupy this space and create a nice solid block so that when the front four are counter-pressing or attacking in these areas, should the opposition clear the ball, they're really probably going to clear it centrally to here, and then that just will restart the process out wide to the fullbacks. So They're an interesting team. You know, the reason I say they're like Getafe is that in that sense that they're kind of a statistical outlier in their league in terms of the way they're looking to play. You know, it's not about possession. It's not about the creation of intricate movement. It's not especially about controlling the passage of the ball forwards in a transition. They're really direct, really counter-pressing. But it's working, and again, like Getafe, despite being basically skint, I'm not actually sure how skint they are compared with the rest of the league, but you know, this is not a team that can afford to splash out big money on transfers. They have to be very astute, but they're really making the most of what they're doing. And as I say, whether it's going to be enough to propel them into the Bundesliga for the first time in their history, I think is really very unlikely. But if they do go up, it will be very popular because this is a much loved team in Germany. I don't think you'll find many people who've got anything bad to say about them, apart from maybe Hertha fans. And because of that tradition of fan engagement and the kind of leftist roots as well, they would be a great addition to the Bundesliga, even though they would promptly get relegated again. So that is FC Union Berlin. As I say, go on YouTube and check out Nina Hagen's song Eisen Union. You will find yourself singing it subsequently. If you ever get the opportunity to go and watch them play, you should, because they're great fun. We will be back next week with another tactics video subject to your suggestions, but thanks very much for joining us.